We lost AJ. What's up, Nets Nation? What's up? Welcome, welcome. It is early. This is our earliest show we've got going on this morning, but we do have a special guest, Mr. Billy Reinhardt. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Yeah, we usually have our chief here in AJ, but AJ, we joke with him. He's got the McDonald's Wi-Fi going on this morning, so he'll be in here in a minute. Let's see. Starting off right away. Let's see. We got Rage in here. Billy's here. Chat, it's starting to cook up. Let's see. Age. What's going on, Age? Juice Kid. Christopher Miners. Aaron Brahim. Welcome. Oh, here we go. We got our man back.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Wi-Fi is going crazy right now. My Wi-Fi would act up right now, bro.
You threw me for a loop, dude. I'm not the good intro man, so I'm gonna let you redo that.
Oh, my fault, everybody. Yo, what's good, Nets Nation? Welcome to the kingdom, y'all. So we got Billy Reinhardt with us, Nets Daily, SB Nation reporter. I got my guy Saint Rage with me. So, yeah, did you do shout-outs? You did shout-outs already, right?
I kind of started to do a really bad version of you. It was really bad.
Shout out that station. Aaron Brahim, Joey AD. Let me shout out the chat. Age, what's good? Christopher Miners, Barry Garrix, Isaac. Who else is in here? Nazareth, Brian V. Yo, what's good? Nest World, Anthony Davis, Marcus Messiah. Quick shout-outs, then we'll get into it.
Yo, we got Anthony
Davis. We got Anthony Davis in here, bro. There's always that one person in the chat that makes their own first we had Devin Booker, we had Kevin Durant in here, and they have the whole profile picture and everything. They'll be in here. But yeah, so Billy, just get us started. First tell the people who you are, how you got started, your reporting, basically a small summary, the story of you.
Yeah, so I'll be 24 in October, so I've actually been going at this a little bit now. It sneaks up on you, but I kind of started doing reporting back early in college, freshman, sophomore year. I was afforded some unbelievable opportunities at Fordham to go to some professional games as a credential reporter and get to make some connections there. I did a little bit of Nets work back in, what season was it? Brooke Lopez's final year, whatever that was. So that's when I first started doing some Nets reporting. And then from there, I made connections with people there. I got in touch with Nets Daily. My account started to grow, and I started to collab with them, and I was a credential reporter with them for a few years. Continuing to write with them. So, that's kind of been my path. And you guys have been so great in terms of supporting me that I've been able to grow my account. And you guys like what I have to say. So it's something I enjoy. And I really just started Twitter just as a passionate sports fan wanting to converse with other people of the same ilk. So you guys have been a fun avenue for me to have that with on Twitter. So I appreciate all the support. And I'm here with you guys now. Here on the stream. What do we call this? A stream?
Yeah, stream podcast. You could call it both. But I was gonna say, like I said, Billy's. I think congrats on getting verified. I seen you just got verified.
Thank you.
Billy's tweets, like I said, follow Billy on Twitter, y'all, because he puts the analytics that Billy has on his tweets, yo. He puts all the good analytics, and then he just makes everybody mad with the analytics. I just see out of the comments, you just see people just angry typing, no, this is this. His tweets stir up Nets Nation. It is good tweets though. It's good debate tweets. That's what's good about your tweets.
The people that don't like the tweets are always the loudest, but they're important in terms of likes and retweets. So there are a lot of people that do enjoy them. So
yeah.
I don't know if you saw this chat quote. I thought it was kind of funny. He said, so he's been arguing with a 23-year-old on Twitter this whole time. That's pretty funny. Hey, you know your stuff though, bro.
He's like I said, he's good. He's a legit reporter, y'all. So you put some respect on Billy's name.
Exactly.
But we'll get right into it. So if you guys don't know, the Brooklyn Nets have signed Paul Millsap. The news broke yesterday. Paul Millsap averaged 9 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.8 assists in 2020-2021. He's six. It says he's listed as 6'7". I think he's more 6'8", but he's 6'7", 257 pounds. As you guys know, I think he shot 34% last year from three. Yeah, 34% from three. So Billy, what's your take again on Paul Millsap? Do you think that we're saying, okay, he's the replacement for Jeff Green. To me, Jeff Green's a little bit better than him. But what's your take on Paul Millsap coming to the Nets?
I think you could look at him as a Jeff Green replacement. I think he's better than Jeff Green in certain areas, maybe areas that complement the Nets more. I think he'll help more on the glass. He's better defensively. He's a little stronger, bigger bodied. So those are things the Nets need. In terms of taking a little bit of a step back as a scorer and a shooter, I think Millsap is a little bit of a downgrade there, although he's just 1 year removed from like basically 40% three-point shooting and where he was a few years before that. So when you look at that, I think there's potential for a bounce-back year playing next to all the Nets stars. I mean, he's going to have a ton of open looks. Playing for Harden, Kyrie, KD, even a guy like Patty Mills. So I think there's a chance that Millsap returns to a near 40% three-point shooter. And overall, I like the move. A high IQ, tough veteran. He can play a smaller role. He's been doing that over the last few years for Denver, so it's not really asking him to take a real, I guess, different role than what he's had over the last couple of years. So I think especially at this stage of the summer, late stage in free agency, to get a player of this caliber, whether he starts or comes off the bench, I think he's someone who can give you 15 to 20 minutes at least of really capable play and into the playoffs be someone that can play for you. So I think it's a really good get for the Nets.
Yeah, because the analytics, the thing with Jeff Green probably had one of the best seasons of his life last year. And he had a 3 points on lock, 3-point percentage was on lock. I think he was shooting like 40 up. And a lot of people think like Paul Millsap is kind of like up with Jeff Green, but I think he's like a step tier a little bit down. But the thing that Paul Millsap does better than Jeff, I think, is rebound better. Like I said this before, Paul Millsap averaged 7.2 rebounds for his career. And that is like really good. I think I looked up his like offensive and defensive rebounds. He averaged like 2 each. And it's been really, his rebounding is where I think he will help us the most. Because Jeff could rebound, but not like Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap is a really good rebound. Like I said, he has the big body for it. He'll push people around in the lane and get that offensive rebounds that we need. Because second chance points during the Nets season, we was struggling getting rebounds and all that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think Jeff Green was really good last year. Like you said, he had one of his best seasons. At his age, I'm not sure he's going to repeat that. I mean, he was kind of at this trajectory, and then he went up like this with the Nets last year, and he finally got more than the minimum, which was good for him, obviously, with the Nuggets. But I'm not so sure Green would have had the same season. Like I said, I think Millsap's a better fit for what the Nets need. And Jeff Green was great for when they went small ball and played games with him at the 5. But I think they struggled on the defensive end and the rebounding in those lineups because Green's not as physical as a guy like Millsap. So if you look at Millsap, if you're playing him I think he's going to play most of his minutes at the 4, but if you want to go small and play him at the 5, I think he's better suited to do that than Jeff Green was.
Yeah. Saint, what's your opinion on the Jeff Green versus Paul Millsap battle?
Well, again, it's kind of like similar. I think they do some things similar, but I also think they're slightly. I give kind of the scoring edge to Jeff Green, and I give like the rebounding kind of defense to Paul Millsap. Like, after watching some, I'm familiar with Paul Millsap, just been, watching basketball as long as I am. He to me is more of like the defensive rebounder guy. I really like his hands. I liked a lot of the highlights where he was slapping the ball away from people, getting in passing lanes. For me, I think that's just a little bit more what we needed. Like, Jeff Green is great, and I would have loved to keep the guy, but I can't argue with this as the Jeff Green replacement, right? Yeah. He played in Utah, mainly power forward. Denver, he got a little power forward center. So for me, he's like, you get him, he keeps you universal, and where you can play the small ball, where you could potentially run him with Blake. And stay small ball with the big 3, or if you bring in LaMarcus Aldridge, or if later in the season we pick up a real big, like somebody who, or even Clax, like you can go big with him as well. Like, so to me, he's versatile. Yes, he's older. He's 36. I don't think the expectations is that he's going to run 30, 40 minutes.
No.
I agree with Billy. He's going to be a 15 to 20 minute guy. And I think he's going to be extremely versatile in the different schemes that they throw out next year, especially once we see how they play together. We still got preseason. We still got training camp. I mean, we still got all these what ifs. Again, it's almost like a new team again, minus a couple people. We got to see how it gel and how it works. So, I mean, I love it. I got no problem with it.
Yeah, go ahead, Rage.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, personally, I think Paul Millsap is a step above Jeff Green in terms of what we need. I mean, he gives you defense, he gives you rebounding, which is our biggest flaws last year, in my opinion. So, I'll definitely take it. Obviously Jeff Green has a scoring edge, but I'm definitely taking what Paul Millsap brings to us than what Jeff Green does, just in terms of defense and rebounding, of course. So I think it's perfect for what we need. He gives us much needed front court depth, which is, I think another thing of what we needed. You have the guy that can rotate the four with Blake. Possibly play the five. I like it.
And the thing, I was going to ask you guys, whose defense is better, Jeff or Paul? That's what I'm trying to like figure out, because
I think Paul's defense is better personally.
I think Paul's better.
I think.
Go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, I think Jeff Green. He's more mobile, so technically he's more versatile. I guess he can guard more positions, but guard more positions in terms of just being able to, I guess, compete. I think Millsap better in terms of a defender at the 4-5. I think he's stronger. He's more stout. Like you said, his hands are good. He's willing to be physical. So I think for what the Nets need, he's an upgrade.
Because Paul Millsap's a better post defense. Like his post defense is really good. Because Jeff was kind of getting killed in the post. I think one of those series I remember. I think during the Bucks series. Oh no, you know what it was? That Bam Adebayo game. Bam had like 41 on Jeff, and he was just killing Jeff in the post. So like Paul Millsap, I think, would be better in the post. But on the perimeter, Paul Millsap is not as good as Jeff. So again, they differ that way. They're two different players. So I know Nets Nation is like, oh, Jeff is better than Paul. They're two different players. To me, I'm still gonna take Jeff a little bit more. Like he's a little top tier over like that. But Paul Millsap is like literally a step like right there with Jeff. So it's a good signing. Let me read some comments real quick. Somebody said Green can switch on every position. Shout out Edmund. Aaron Berhane said post defender Millsap. Tommy Bryan said, how does the organization view Clax? Will he take a big step up this year? Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe start. We'll get to that, y'all. We'll get to y'all questions. Saint, what's next on the topics?
All right, next on the topics, we are going to go with...
I think we got LaMarcus, right? LaMarcus.
Well, I didn't have a legit random by itself. LaMarcus, so I'll just keep him up there.
Yeah. All right, so the Brooklyn Nets, LaMarcus, I think Shams reported this yesterday. LaMarcus was cleared to play in the NBA. He passed all the health.
Uh-oh, did we lose it? AJ is having fun today with his Wi-Fi. Basically, I know he was going at like Shams pretty much tweeted that he was clear. I know you guys Billy, you reported, other people have reported that like he's been cleared by the NBA. He's been cleared, I'm assuming, by the Nets. I don't fully 100% know, but and they're saying they're giving the edge to Brooklyn. So, Billy, what's your thoughts on that? What are you hearing in your Nets world?
Yeah, I had heard that Woj reported a couple of weeks ago that he was going to meet with teams and seek medical clearance. I had heard that was what he was doing over the last couple of weeks, within this last week. So I was expecting him to probably get clearance soon. And when that time did come, it just seems like the Nets are the obvious favorite for him. He loved his time here. It got cut short. He kind of felt robbed of unfinished business. It just has so many connections in the organization. It just feels like the exact right spot for him. So now that he has been cleared, Shams said that he's leaning to the Nets. I think that's basically telling us all he can without saying it's official. So to me, LaMarcus is officially a Net. And we'll be getting official word of that from the team and from LaMarcus within the next week, probably.
Nice. Well, okay, so to move into the part with LaMarcus, like we saw, however small it was last year, the impact and how well I thought he personally gelled with the team. What do you think, adding Millsap, adding all the players that we've added, and then if we add LaMarcus, like how do you see that working again? Like, what do you see, do you see him? Because I personally don't see him as a starter. I see they're going to be, in my opinion, I believe they're going to be very careful with him. They're not going to run him back-to-backs. They're going to take his health very seriously and try to keep him longevity-wise for the whole season. So my question to you is, how are they going to use LaMarcus this year if they sign him?
I think if all's good with his health coming into the year, I think he's starting. And I don't think he's playing 30 minutes a game, but I think he's going just out of respect for LaMarcus. And they like how he fits in terms of being their biggest five, I guess. And he could play some drop, give you a post option with the big three, space the floor. I think they like that fit with him, and I think he's better than the alternatives. Because if you start I don't think they're going to start Milsap at center. Blake, they could start Blake at center. They just did that. But then you have Aldridge and Claxton off the bench, which I think they view Aldridge and Claxton. While they could probably play together, I think they view them both as their fives. So I don't think they'd want to play the two of them together off the bench. It's about the way it fits together. So I think it makes the most sense for Aldridge to start. Maybe just play him the start of each half and a little bit more. So maybe he just plays 15 minutes a night, especially early on, just to get his wind back and be cautious, as you said. But my guess right now would be that it's Millsap, Aldridge at the 4-5. At least that's what they'll try in the beginning of training camp and see if it works. And then they probably go Blake and Clax off the bench. But it doesn't really matter who starts. I think Millsap and Aldridge might end up playing less minutes than Blake and Clax. It really doesn't matter who starts. So it's just about the fit of the roster, a little bit of politics. Obviously, Aldridge, I think, is someone that they respect enough to let him start, and then and let Claxton grow behind him. And they're all going to play. The Nets are going to be very free with resting guys this season. They're incredibly deep now, and that's the biggest thing about this. These two signings would allow them to be incredibly versatile, incredibly deep, and just have so many options. I mean, when you think about the three veteran bigs that they could potentially have, all of them can shoot, all of them can pass, and that allows them offensively to play with anybody. So you can mix and match those combos, and defensively, they'll be bigger in the front court, rebounding. That will help. So, I mean, the Nets are really stacked right now, and I wouldn't worry about minutes. I think for all of those parties, they're trying to win a championship.
Welcome back, AJ. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's my internet. My internet chooses to act up today, man. Of all days, you know what it is.
You got me. It's like
nah, you good, bro. You good.
As soon as you leave, I'm like, you put me on the spot today, bro. No, I'm just playing. I'm playing.
You know, but yeah, exactly. Everything that Billy said was I agree with. And LaMarcus, what I think LaMarcus has in him, like with the post, when I saw him guard post last year, and it just like his rebounding and post defense, he just has that bigger presence that I think that we needed during that Bucks series, because that Bucks series was like, yeah, it kind of pissed me off because Steve Nash was going small, and we just needed like a center. We need somebody to kind of compete with Brook. Brook didn't really have no competition, you know, and he didn't really have like somebody just to go against, a big body to go against. Blake is not, you know, Blake at the center, it was not working to me against that series. So what do you think about that series, Billy, about that? If we had LaMarcus in that Bucks series?
Well, you know what it was? They had to go small because without Kyrie and Harden, they needed more scoring. They needed more spacing. Because if you're going with even a guy like, that's why you saw Clax's minutes go down. One, because Blake was doing well against Giannis, and Clax was a little foul prone whenever he would get in there. And two, the fact that the Nets needed someone like that would give them offense at the 5 position, space the floor a little bit more, which is what Blake did and Green did when they went small to him. So when we think about Clax, he really doesn't provide anything offensively unless Harden's playing, and then he can get some rolls and dunks at the rim. So they needed more spacing with KD. I think the Nets realized the only chance they have of winning that series being so shorthanded was KD going off. So they were trying to make life easier for him. Think about what happened in Game 5. The Bucks were trying to full court press him, and they started setting high screens up top at the half court with Blake Griffin, and KD's coming downhill one after another, and he's getting layups at the rim. They're playing with speed, they're playing with pace, and they're playing with space. So that was a way to get KD, try and unlock him and make life easier for him. I think Aldridge in that series, we saw it went to overtime of a Game 7. So you had Aldridge for that series. I think the margin was this thin. Can Aldridge get you over the hump? Probably. I'm not sure how he would have fit in that series. He probably has to guard Brook and then space out to the 3. And that makes KD probably have to guard Giannis. So it changes things a little bit. But to have just another player that could be a scoring option, give KD a blow once in a while, even in a minute or two, maybe he can sit on the bench and get his legs on him. I think that would have helped.
Like I said it before, I think LaMarcus would have helped us scoring-wise because, like I said, in Portland, I remember he had that 50-point. I think he had a 50-point game in the playoffs. Like his scoring would have helped KD in that series because LaMarcus, like I said, he's one of the greatest. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best post scorers in history. Like he can really get shots off. You know what I'm saying? Clean shots off and over people. You know what I'm saying? His shot is just, and he can hit threes. So he'll space the floor too. So, and with LaMarcus, it's just that I think that it's a little scary because you don't know if he's going to stay. If he signs back to us, you don't know if he's going to stay the whole year. You don't know like what's going to happen. It's a little risk. It's a risky kind of take, but it's a risk that I think Sean Marks is willing to take. You know, because like I said, our team is very deep now. We have Patty Mills. We got a good front court. And the thing I like about our team this year is that we have more Giannis defenders. You know what I'm saying? We do have a lot more guys that can guard Giannis. Blake, Paul Millsap. You can even throw Day'Ron Sharp at him for a little bit, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. Give people rest. Like we have a lot of people that can get that Giannis, wall up Giannis. But yeah, go ahead, Chubbs and Rage. What do you guys get your takes in?
Chubbs, you're muted.
Chubbs,
Hey,
muted.
let me just throw you there. Let me just throw a question in while Chubbs is getting his thing together. Because and Billy, you this is going to be, I guess, a question directed at you. Is because like in our Discord, in our little Nets world that we got, there's a healthy debate about Claxton starting, getting his start. Like there's a lot of people that, there is a part of Nets world that feel like if LaMarcus comes, like they're not happy. They don't seem happy that like Clax might be staying in the role player, that they feel he should be the starter, or that is like, how do you feel? Like, because the way I look at Clax, like the dude has a ton of potential, a ton of talent. I do think he's still raw and still needs some work in certain areas down low. Like I have no issues with his perimeter defense, like his switching, like you see it, it's evident. But a lot of people are kind of like, some people are like, no, he's not ready for the starting spot. And then there's other people, like I gotta give my boy Age a shout out. Like he is Clax fanboy number one. Like he wants that man to start. And what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you see it in Twitter. People are coming. Some people are like all Clax, and then some people are like, nah, he's not ready. Like what's your thoughts on that?
I tweeted it yesterday. There's a very strong, smallish group of Clax supporters, and I'd even call them Clax stands. And I find that it's a lot of the young fans. Yeah, it's a lot of the young fans, and I don't know why, but I feel like the young generation really gravitates towards Clax. I see a lot of Clax like stan accounts on Twitter, which is surprising. He hasn't really done anything yet, but I mean, he's a good young player. Like you said, he has a ton of potential. I think the reason he, like I said, he fell out of the Bucks series because he's limited right now in terms of who he's playing next to. Like if Harden was healthy and playing to his full capability, Claxton's getting dump offs at the rim, and then you could use his defensive presence. But when he's not with Harden, the Nets don't run. If the Nets don't run as much pick and roll, he's really not anything offensively. Not a great offensive rebounder. He's not walling people off as a screener. Doesn't have any real skill on the offensive side yet that he's developed as a go-to move. So he's kind of just there offensively. So I think when Harden's in the game, we saw a lot of that pick and roll, getting lobs at the rim. Harden really levels up the play of any center that he plays with. So I think it will be smart for the Nets next year to keep Claxton off the bench early on, allow him to play with Harden when Harden leads the second unit. When you go with Harden, Mills, maybe Joe Harris, Blake and Clax. I like the way Blake and Claxton played together last year. Blake can guard fives, Claxton can guard fours. I think that fits well. And the main thing I would like to preach to the Nets fans and the guys that want Claxton to play, he can start. I think if he starts, the Nets will be fine. I just think is that really what's important right now? Like, why do you really care if Clax starts? I mean, you're a Nets fan, right? If you're a Nets fan, you want to see the team win. And
I like Billy's. Oh, spicy.
We like spicy here. We like spicy.
I've been a Nets fan my whole life. They've never been anywhere near this level good. I mean, appreciate this era. You're getting to watch. I understand a lot of these young fans, maybe they didn't grow up watching an Aldridge or Blake, a Milsap being really good players, but these are all stars of the 2010s and the late 2000s. So, I mean, it's really cool to see these guys on the team. I think together they'll be good for Claxton's development in terms of him working with those guys every day in practice. And I just be patient with it. I think Claxton will have his time. They'll all play. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of load management. I'm sure Claxton will start his handful of games, and maybe by the end of the year, he's the starter going into the playoffs. But that will be up to him. I think he'll have every opportunity to do so, but he has to earn it. I don't believe with young players, I don't believe in carving out a role for them just to play. I think they should earn it. And especially when you're in title contention like this. I mean, the Nets are going to be great. Whoever plays, I really don't care who plays personally. I mean, if they're winning. If they're struggling and it looks like there's a need to switch things up, then sure, let's see what Claxton can do. But I think for now, they have that 4 big rotation. I think they'll all play similar minutes, and whoever earns the time will play the time. So that's a good option for the Nets to have, and I wouldn't be so worried about individual players and what they're playing.
With Claxton, his defense is where, like, he shines bright, right? Mm-hmm. And with the Nets, it's like I want Steve Nash to give him minutes to develop him. I'm not saying, like, a lot of people, Anonymous Nation, are putting a lot on Claxton. I mean, people forget that he's so young. I think, what is this, his 3rd year? So you can't put, like,
it's only his 2nd full year. He missed basically his entire rookie year. So, I mean, he's so young.
Yeah, it's like you can't put everything on him. You know what I'm saying? And I still want him to develop because he's so good. I see the potential, but it's like you can't put the whole thing on him already. Like he's still got to develop. He's still learning. You know what I'm saying? So as long as he develops and gets, I want him to get minutes. As long as he develops and gets minutes, a few minutes here and there, I don't mind if he starts or comes off the bench. I'm not one of those. I love Clax. You know what I'm saying? I love Clax. Shout out to Claxton, but I don't mind if he starts and gets minutes. But so if DeAndre Jordan, let's say DeAndre Jordan leaves, Billy? Are you all in on Claxton, or you would rather LaMarcus? If we got LaMarcus to come, would you rather LaMarcus start, or would you just go small with the Blake lineup?
I think you got to experiment with it. I think coming into training camp, if Aldridge is fully healthy and has a full go, I think Millsap and Aldridge is what they'll try at first. But like I said, they're going to try every single combo throughout the year. They have a long season. The regular season doesn't mean a whole lot to them. They're going to be able to roll over teams with whatever lineup they put out there, to be frank. So I think they're going to try it all. They'll all get their chance, and they're going to mix and match until they find the right combos, and that means how the minutes a lot in terms of who starts, the combo off the bench, and then how that works in terms of mixing the rotation up so you can get the best guys you want to close the game. So it's more to than starting and closing. I mean, we've seen if a guy like Andre Iguodala on the Warriors dynasty teams, a max player, always been an all-star, can come off the bench. I think Nick Claxton can as well. So I think this is an argument that really doesn't mean anything. When you're on a title team like this, guys are going to sacrifice, and the guy that can sacrifice the most is the 21-year-old that has.
It's a big argument on Nets Twitter. Nets Twitter it's a huge argument. So we'll just segue into the next topic is roster predictions. Who starts, who sits. Now with my thing here is like the starters always change. We've seen Steve Nash literally change his starting lineup every game because I guess what he does is he adjusts to the team. He adjusts to the team he's playing. If the team goes small, they got bigs. If they're let's say if they're like a perimeter team, he changes the lineup. But I want y'all first, like, who is y'all starting five? Let's say DeAndre Jordan gets bought out. Who is your? Well, actually, let's do a closing lineup. That's more efficient. Who's your closing lineup in the fourth quarter of games that we really need to win? Who's your closing lineup? I'm gonna start with that because starters are gonna change according to teams. So I want everybody's and put your closing lineups in the chat right now. If y'all put your closing lineups in the chat. Who is your closing lineups?
Just to chime in real quick about that last part with Clax. The great thing about having Milsap, Blake, possibly LaMarcus Aldridge, Claxton. I mean, the combinations to me are just I don't want to say endless, but they're there, and like you can go either way at any point in the game, and you're okay. Like I kind of like more and more when I look at those four players. You have young and inexperienced. You have then three older veterans that clearly you don't want playing 30, 40 minutes the whole season. So you have a lot of flexibility there. I know we forget James Johnson now, but he is technically a power forward, small forward, right? Like that's where they're – so you still have that. And I don't know. I just think the flexibility that I'm getting to the point where I almost don't even really care who starts, just as long as Joe Harris doesn't start. And that'll come later.
Man.
That'll come out. I love Joe Harris, but I just don't. I want him off the bench. But
here come the toxic tweets.
No. That's one of our other topics. I won't even.
Don't get too fast with it. Go ahead with your. Who's your closing lineup then, Saint? Go ahead with your closing lineup then. If you're gonna.
I'm gonna. No, Chubbs, Rage. You guys go. I'm just. I'm dipping out on that right now.
You don't want the smoke?
No, it's not that I don't want the smoke. I'm much rather hear what you guys.
Go ahead, Rage. Closing lineup. I know you have it.
I'm gonna have to go obviously the big three, and I'm gonna take Paul Millsap and LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, Paul Millsap and LaMarcus Aldridge again are gonna be great fits. They're veterans. They've been in the league forever. And I think they do what we do in terms of spacing the floor, giving us interior defense. Obviously, that's what we want. So I'm definitely taking that. Obviously you don't want those guys playing 30, 40 minutes, but if I'm taking a closing lineup, I'm definitely taking them with all the experience. So I'm definitely going with them.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Chubbs.
Okay. Good. So most definitely my closing lineup would probably be the big three, Blake or LaMarcus, or depending on who we play, the big three, Millsap and LaMarcus, because I feel like we'll alternate it, but based on who we play. I feel like that's a strong chance we do that. I also feel like we might throw something random like Mills at the 4 to help with scoring in certain situations when we're closing, but I think the most consistent one will be big three, Blake, LaMarcus.
Yeah, I was gonna say no one has Blake in there, and no one has Blake or Patty in their closing.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have Patty at that 4, like to help with some form of scoring down the stretch.
Yeah.
What do you mean Patty at the 4, or you mean Paul at the 4? I'm confused.
Both, because I feel like we're gonna try to run.
You think you bring Patty?
He'll go small. He's saying Steve Nash will go small. He's saying Steve Nash will go small.
We're still gonna go
kind
small.
Of like what we did
variation.
kind of what we did with Harris last year.
Yeah, we're gonna go small at some variation. But I feel like Patty's going to be more involved than Joe.
Patty's a big shot. Patty's Mr. Fourth Quarter. Patty be hitting them clutch shots, so I wouldn't mind Patty being in the fourth quarter. But Billy, who you have your closing lineup?
Yeah, I'm laughing here because someone randomly a week or two ago DM'd me that I looked like Asher from All American. Now someone just
oh, yo, you do look like no, you don't look like totally like it, but you have like a similar.
You do.
But I think it's going to be completely matchup dependent. The score of the game, if they're losing, if they're winning. I mean, it's the big three. Those are the only three guaranteed to be there, and then I think it's going to depend on everything else. I mean, if there's a team that has quick guard that they want to guard Patty Mills, they'll put Patty Mills out there. If it's a team where Joe Harris can survive defensively and they can go a little smaller with KD at the 4, then they'll have Joe Harris out there. If they need to go bigger, then they got Milsap, Blake, Aldridge, Claxton. I mean, there's a lot of options. Bruce Brown, I think, could even get involved there. We haven't mentioned him. So I think they have a ton of options. It's going to really depend on the who they're playing, the matchup, and if they're winning or losing. So hard to say right now. I think it's going to change game by game.
I mean, that's the one thing that I'm liking about this, the way that they built the roster so far this year is that versatility is there. And I definitely think with the big three, you kind of have to love that. You just can continue the versatility, and it doesn't matter. Because I agree. I think each game is gonna be different, whether it's a big team or a small team. And I mean, the fact that you can rotate all 4 of those big guys down low, Patty Mills, Joe Harris. Like if you need more D, you still got Bruce Brown, you got Bembry, you got Johnson, and obviously garbage time. Okay, here 2 questions. We'll move on to more roster part of the roster predictions of how much playing time do you realistically see Cam Thomas and Sharp getting this season? Like, are they going to be? Do you think they're going to come in at important times? And if so, like who more than other? Or do you think they're going to be pretty much like garbage time guys, just soaking? Obviously, in the beginning of the season, I think that's going to be more the case. But what are your thoughts on, like, say, Cam and Sharp and their playing time this year, realistically?
Yeah, I think Sharp's not really seeing any time at all. I think he's going to be on Long Island most of the year, progressing, developing. I mean, there is 5 front court options ahead of him, and that's not even counting KD and potentially Bruce Brown. So I don't see a route to him playing unless everyone got hurt. So I'd expect him to be in Long Island most of the year, kind of like Claxton was his rookie year. He didn't play at all with the Nets. So I expect a similar route for him. Cam Thomas, I think he's a little more ready. It's a little easier way to get into the rotation because in that backcourt, he's just competing with, I guess, Javon Carter and DeAndre Bembry to get a spot. Bruce Brown, too. So I think Thomas is more of the 12th man right now. So I think he's on the outside looking in. I think an injury or two, or on a load management night where Kyrie or Harden are out, and then you a little more scoring punch. I think he could jump right in there. So I think Cam Thomas will see some time in the rotation, although I wouldn't say he's a rotation regular given where the roster stands right now.
Nice. Looks like we lost AJ. AJ and his Wi-Fi. I'm trying to get him in, but it's not allowing me to go down there. So we'll have to try something here in a minute. All right. Well, and then this is the other. We can just kind of slide into this. This was another one of our topics, but we can kind of put it in the roster predictions. And it may get a little spicy. I know a lot of people are a little bummed out on this, man. Joe Harris, starter bench. I mean, the guy was the most durable player for us last year with 2,000 plus minutes. I don't think anybody really had any issue with him as far as like regular season play. Maybe even the first series against Celtics, there was no real complaints. But then come the Bucks series in the last 3 games, Joey seemed to disappear, and that just rubbed everybody the wrong way. And it was trade Joe. Joe sucks. Joe's the worst. And then pick apart every negative part of his game. And, I definitely think he deserved a little like, hey, bro, where'd you go? If you would have just hit a couple threes, the game, we probably would have won it as well. But I also feel like the dude's taken a whole lot of hate that he doesn't deserve just for the other things he's done for the team prior to the big 3, the regular season. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think every fan has the right to be incredibly frustrated with the way Joe Harris played to the end of that Bucks series. I mean, he makes 1 or 2 more shots, they might have won the NBA title last year. So, I mean, I don't think that's an exaggeration. That's the truth. At the same time, I'm not going to write off a guy that's been the elite 3-point shooter and a really good player for this team for years now just because he had a bad few games. So I think if he starts, that's fine. I'd like to see them try playing a little bigger because I think that's what they're going to have to do to get past the best teams in the league, the Lakers, the Bucks, potentially the Sixers if they can figure things out. So I would like to see them kind of experiment with that. We haven't really seen the Nets play big in the Marks era. KD played 3 a little bit more. So I think Joe Harris is still a starting caliber player, and he can do that. And I think the Nets offensively will be their best when Joe Harris is in the lineup next to the big 3. But it's just about everything else. So I think at first, like I said, I think they're going to try Milsap and Aldridge. And then Harris, I think, will start a bunch of games at some point. Who knows if it's their best lineup going into the playoffs? I think, again, it's going to depend on matchups. Against a team like Milwaukee, Harris probably comes off the bench. Against a smaller team like a Boston, I think that maybe Joe Harris starts. So it's like I said, it depends on matchups. The Nets have so many options now. I think they'll be free to experiment and try different lineups. But we got to try and stay rational in Nets world here. We can't all Joe Harris because he had a couple bad games. You still have to realize he's a really good player. And the chances are that's not going to happen again to that extent, at least. So I think he does have something to prove in terms of being a playoff performer. He wasn't great against the Sixers a few years ago. But I do think he would get more open looks. He'll be more in rhythm more. The pressure won't be the same on him if Kyrie and Harden are healthy and playing to their level. So that's my feeling on it. I have confidence in Joe Harris going into the year and then kind of prove it to me in the playoffs. So root for Joe Harris. He's on your team. He's been good over the last few years. I wouldn't write him off yet.
Yeah, I'll just say this and I'll let everybody go. It's I've always been I love Joey Buckets. Always have. Love his attitude. Love what he had brought into the game. I just always felt that with maybe it's just the construction of this team, and you're very right. That, when the lineups change and we're facing different teams, you can start him, you cannot start him, whatever. I just always felt he would, because we have the big 3. I felt what's the need for Joe Harris to come in as a starter? You don't need his scoring. You've got the big 3. He, to me, seems like a better guy to come off the bench, especially now with Patty Mills. And even if you have Harden in there running that second unit with the other players, because my whole thing this offseason was I love that we went more defensive minded. We picked up, obviously Bembry Johnson, Patty Mills was our scorer. But the one thing I felt like that was lacking a little bit for this season was in the offseason was okay, we got better defensively, but who's coming off the bench if everybody's saying Joe Harris is going to start? Who's really coming off the bench besides Patty Mills to really score? And I just felt like Joe Harris would be better in that position coming off the bench as a 6-man type guy, as a scorer with that second unit. And it would just – it's like a 1-2 punch, big 3. Then you bring in Patty Mills, you bring in Harris, maybe run Harden with him, Clax, Blake or Paul, and it's how you to go back and forth from that setup. I just felt like that's unbeatable. But AJ, you back?
Yeah, can you hear me? My audio.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I'm on my phone. That's how bad my internet is, yo.
It's all good. What are your guys' thoughts? Chubbs, Rage, AJ.
You want to go first, Rage?
You got it, Chubbs.
No, yeah, Joe Harris definitely should have been benched even since last season. It just didn't make sense starting him. When all last games last season, we saw when any of the big 3 came off, we just had no real scoring off the bench. And I feel like just Joe there with, like Saint said, with Mills and everybody, I think he's more smoother role coming off the bench with those guys rather than being with the big 3, being relegated just just sit in the corner and shoot a three type of thing, you know.
All right, respectable.
Go ahead, Rach.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Joe Harris come off the bench. In my opinion, I just think I think we have enough in terms of scoring. We got the big three. We have honestly, if we start Paul Millsap, we have LaMarcus Aldridge. I think we're good there. And then you run off the bench. Obviously, you have Harden running the second unit. You have Patty Mills. You have Harris. You have Blake, and you have Claxton. I think that's I think that fits for what we do. And also, Joe Harris actually, in the few games he played off the bench, he had like the same amount of stats as when he was starting. So I don't have a problem with Joe Harris coming off the bench, and I think he would excel there just in terms of how the team fits.
Yeah, I think the problem with Joe last year is because we put him at the 4 a lot. Like we put him at the 4, and he was guarding like bigger people. Like he was guarding guys that were like more athletic and more big than him. So I think like he needs to be in a position bench where he just gets the shot, gets open shots. You know what I'm saying? Like Patty Mills and Harden, I feel like they're gonna. If he comes off the bench, for me, if he comes off the bench, I think he'll be better that way because he can just get open shots. He don't have to worry about guarding Chris Middleton or one of these 6'10", 6'9" forwards. He just got to worry about coming off screens, hitting shots. I feel like the best thing for him will be coming off the bench, especially if we get LaMarcus and Millsap. I think I'm choosing Joe off the bench. That's just my opinion. Go ahead, Shane. You want to go on to the next one? Go next topic.
Yeah. I had muted myself for a minute. I figure this would be a good, because there was some interesting discussions on Twitter yesterday about Nets Lakers breakdown. So I figure kind of like this might be. I mean, because at the end of the day, I think everybody in the NBA is either mad or really excited that the Nets and Lakers are stacked in a potential finals setup. It definitely was a nice discussion yesterday about who has the better roster, the matchup. So
it's a tough thing, man.
It is a tough thing because both teams are stacked. And somebody just asked me about versatility. Like, are we the most versatile roster? Yeah. And then you look at the Lakers, and it's like it's hard not to look at them. If you're just like an unbiased basketball fan, it's hard not to look at both lineups and be like, damn, they're stacked. Damn, they're they can hit you in so many different ways. Yeah. And then it obviously comes to this: who's better? Like, what's got it better? And I just think there's so many different types of players on either side that could count each other out, where one may be a little bit better at the defensive down low end rebounding, but how are you going to stop the big three scoring, putting 150 on you maybe, or 140 or 130? Like, I don't know. Billy, what's your, because I know you were active yesterday, but what is your take on this whole setup?
On the Nets Lakers series?
Yeah, the Nets Lakers breakdown, rosters, how it matches up, potential finals matchup. Like, what is your whole take on this?
Yeah, I like what the Lakers did this offseason. I think they closed the gap on the Nets a little bit. Prior to yesterday's moves or potential moves with Milsap and Aldridge, I had the Nets in 7 over the Lakers. I think I might say Nets in 6 now because I have more confidence that the biggest thing about this, I don't think Aldridge and Millsap really let me put it this way. I think Aldridge and Millsap make it more likely that they can withstand an injury. And we saw last year that's the only reason they lost, in my opinion. So if Harden and Kyrie, even if the worst-case scenario of 2 of the 3 stars went down again, I think having a few more veterans that are playable, that can score, that can get you a bucket, is going to help them. So, I think the Nets are slightly above the Lakers right now, but I think it'll be an unbelievable series. And I kind of tweeted this out yesterday. It's kind of like 2010 basketball's endgame. Like, you have the biggest characters from 2010s. I think someone said yesterday 11 of the 24 All-Stars from the 2015 All-Star game are on these 2 teams. So it's like all the best players from this last decade. I mean, if you grew up like me and like AJ in this time, I mean, these are all the guys we watched growing up, and they're all going to be meeting in the finals potentially with LA, New York, LeBron, KD. I mean, it's just an unbelievable series that I really hope we get.
Yeah. And with the like before the Paul Millsap and LaMarcus deal, I did say before, I thought the Lakers were a little bit better, but now that we have those 2 guys coming in, I definitely think we have the best roster in the NBA. And just like Billy said, like it's just this is what every NBA, even if you're a basketball fan in general, you don't even have to be a Lakers or Nets fan. If you're a basketball fan in general, just watching this like series is gonna be like next level, man. Like this Christmas, was it Christmas and October 3rd? I don't think everybody's gonna play. I think I think some people will sit out, but Christmas is gonna be like that's gonna be the best gift. That's gonna be Santa's best. Netsmas. It's gonna be a Merry Netsmas. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead, Rage Chubbs, if you're on your takes.
Chubbs, you can take the floor.
All I know is any Lakers Nets matchup this season, I'm avoiding social media with the quick. I'm not touching social media, win or lose, because it's gonna get so toxic.
Yeah.
Like this is like, let's be honest, Lakers Nets finals. This is like bury the hatchet. Who was the best? LeBron, KD, Kyrie, LeBron. All storylines we've heard in like late 2010s basketball to now. All of that is like, you know, let's just like. It's like the peak point, like LeBron, Kyrie, Russ versus Harden, and KD versus Russ. Who can win? They all on the opposite sides now.
Marvel versus DC.
It's literally red versus blue. It's like it's gonna get toxic. It's gonna get so toxic.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rage.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chubbs. You know, I every time, like, you know, it's going to be Christmas, you know, you're going to be with your family, and then the first thing you do is going to be like, oh my gosh, you know, you just see everybody on Twitter just going crazy. You know, they care more about that game than they do about the, you know. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup. I do think, you know, we go into a, you know, final series. I think we do take it in 6. You know, obviously, you know, you might have a bad game here and there. Obviously, that always happens in a series. We saw that with the Celtics. So, but I mean, with all that we have, you know, we've closed, and you know, you get LaMarcus, you get Paul Millsap, you close in some of those gaps that, you know, the Lakers beat you, and you know, like obviously, you know, in inside scoring, obviously we would have had a problem with that if we didn't pick up Millsap, and you know, we're not with the LaMarcus Aldridge thing. So, you know, I'm definitely more towards, you know, the Nets in this situation.
The one thing I want to point out about the Lakers Nets series, I think what John Marks did with the Nets is we kind of got better defensively, but with the Lakers, they didn't. They lost a lot of defense. You know what I'm saying? KCP, Kyle Kuzma, those guys that they let go were really like their defensive. And I don't think they're going to be as good defensively as they were, because they were the number 1 defense in the during the season. I think they're at least top 5 defense. And I think a large part of that was Kuzma, KCP. And now that those guys are gone, I don't know if they're going to be the same. Like I said, I think about their players. Melo's not defense. Dwight Howard is kind of a shell of himself. He's still a good defender, but he's not, you know, the Dwight Howard of old. And then you think about Wayne Ellington is Bazemore is like those guys are not really like defensive, you know, locks. So I don't know if they're going to be as good defensively. I think we're always going to be. I think we're still going to be the number 1 offense, but defense. I think we're going to have a better defensive team than last year. And I'm going to ask Billy this: like, since Steve Clifford is on the team, do you think that Steve Clifford and the new defensive pieces on the Nets, Bembry, who else is on, James Johnson? Do you think the Nets are going to be a better defensive team than last year?
I never really worried about the defense last year. I mean, they got better as the season progressed. This is a team that didn't really have a training camp together. It was a shortened training camp anyway because of COVID. Then they traded for Harden. They had to switch out a bunch of players on the roster. Guys were in and out of the lineup. So, I mean, it's tough to build a good defense. Defense takes time, and defense takes a collective unit together playing well. So, I mean, it's tough to do that when you don't have that time. So, I really didn't worry about it. I thought by the end of the year they would be fine, and I thought the gap offensively was just so great. It really didn't matter. And, I mean, you see this with a lot of stars in the league, and Kyrie is really a prime example of it. Kyrie, a lot of people say he's a bad defender or not. I think Kyrie's a good defender when he tries, and we've seen that in the finals. He guarded Steph predominantly in those finals, and he played as well as Steph did, and he played pretty well. I mean, there's no reason Kyrie can't be a good defender. He's quick. He's got good feet. He's got solid size, solid strength, good hands. Like, I mean, he has everything you need, and you see when he turns it on in a playoff setting that he can defend. So it's just these stars don't want to always play defense for the 82-game grind. And when you get to the playoffs, it looks a lot different. And the games look a lot different when you watch them. So I never really worry about defense for this team. I think as long as they're a top 15 team, an average team, that with the offense that they have, they'll be fine. In terms of this year, I do think they'll improve. Obviously, you have a full training camp. These guys are together for another year. You had a few pieces to kind of add to this group that are going to help their size and their rebounding and their defense. Yeah. And I think a guy like Clifford, he's not really on the staff. He's more of a consultant type, but I think he'll have some good contributions. And David Vanterpool, they got a lot of good guys there. They lost, obviously, Ime Udoka is a good defensive mind. But I think overall, just for this team, it's about the time, putting the time in and having the time to do it. And going towards the end of the year, I think they'll obviously be better than they were this year, where they were a fresh group.
No, that's a good point because, defense is effort. So it's like maybe during the season, the Nets, like I said, they could be a little bit lackadaisical on defense. But in the playoffs, we've seen the defense change in the playoffs, and we're all like, whoa, like it's like a totally different,
KD took a big step too. I mean, in the regular season, KD was getting by, like he'd turn it on, turn it off defensively. Yeah. And then in the playoffs, he was getting 2+ blocks a game, protecting the rim. I mean, he was all over the place. So it's just about conserving your body. They're not going to go all out on the defensive end in these regular season games where a win-loss doesn't really affect that much. Yeah. In the playoffs, when it's all on the line, that's when they really turn it up.
Yeah. And if you take also, Dave, I don't know if you guys saw, I don't know if it's somebody fan-made or not, but, there was a post yesterday about Kyrie coming out saying, like, he's pretty much pulling out the stops next season. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that or fan-made.
I saw that.
Yeah, he was pretty much saying he's bringing the heat next year, like he's focused. So.
Nah, right. When Kyrie locks up, he can lock up, though. There's a lot of he gets that flag when people are like, oh, he can't play D. Like, he locks up when he locks up. Like, he's like an underrated defender, yo. Because a lot of people don't think Kyrie can play defense like that. But I've seen, I watched every Nets game, like every dribble, and I've seen Kyrie like lock up before when he wants to lock up. Like when he's committed, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's on the topic?
All right, this is going to be our last topic, and then we'll go into take questions and whatnot. But this is a lot of questions on a lot of people's mind. DJ Alizé, are they gone? DJ, is he going to get bought out? I've seen reports. Is DJ going to get traded with a first-round pick? Is he going to get waived? Now that you're potentially bringing LaMarcus Aldridge on with Paul Millsap, does that mean Alizé's time is done on the roster and he may go to G League or try to sign with another team? A lot of speculation about what's going to happen. I think the DJ thing's been the most frustrating thing for a lot of Nets fans. Just a complete breakdown of just people not being happy with his play. And then obviously last year he just gets shut down for the last part of the season, doesn't come in for playoffs. People see him as a liability. It's time to move on. So what's going to happen with him? And as much as I loved Alizé's heart, I just didn't see enough improvement over last year. Still too raw. I just don't know if his game is at its level where it's going to stay, and that's just going to be the player he is, or if he needs a lot more time in the G League. But I don't know, Billy, what do you got? Because I know you're hearing all kinds of stuff on this.
Yeah, I know the Nets were shopping DJ, and we all know this at this point, but they were shopping DJ heavily by the draft and in that time. So they never really planned to have DJ on this team going into this year. Once they got past the draft and they used all 5 picks and cap space started to dry up around the league, it made it more difficult to find a home for him via trade. And I don't think the Nets wanted to give up the picks that they had to get rid of Jordan. So it was always kind of shaping up in this direction. And at this point, I think there's too much smoke around it in terms of we're hearing reports that he can land with the Lakers, that the Nets and him have potentially discussed a buyout. There's too much smoke around it, and reading the tea leaves of obviously signing Milsap and Aldridge, it seems like DJ is definitely gone. And I'd expect him to end up with the Lakers. That would be my guess based on everything we've heard. So that seems like what's going to happen there. In terms of Alizé, he's the natural odd man out because of his contract status. It's non-guaranteed. The Nets just actually pushed back the guarantee date to give themselves a little bit more time here to work everything out. So I'd expect Alizé to be the guy out. I don't think he has improved enough in the skill level in terms of as a shooter and doing other things that are the more finesse parts of the game. To really stick on this Nets roster. Maybe he can stick somewhere else. But I think Alizé probably will be the odd man out. They have DeAndre Bembry as a non-guaranteed too. They could lose him, but I think he fits better as a guard. They have enough front court pieces now with the 3 guys, Blake, Millsap, Aldridge, and then Claxton, James Johnson, Day'Ron Sharpe, Bruce Brown, and KD can play some in the front court. So I think they're kind of loaded up front now, which is crazy to think about. And Alizé seems like the guy will be the odd man out.
he didn't really impress me in summer league, because summer league he looked like he got not worse, but he just didn't look good in summer league.
No, he's Alizé's, and it's kind of similar to Claxton. Claxton's obviously a better player, but when they're raw to this level in terms of an offensive skill standpoint, that they need others. They're the type of players that look better next to better talent because they can't get their own shots. You know, Alizé, when he's playing next to all this shooting and guys that can find him, Claxton, the same thing, they're going to look better. But when they're relied upon to be the go-to scorer on the floor, they don't necessarily have that bag at this point to excel. So he's a raw player. He's still relatively young. I think he can stick somewhere with another team. He plays his heart out, which is something you love to see, but I just don't think he's a fit for the Nets given their title contention status at this point.
Nah, and it's interesting you bring up Bembry's contract is non-guaranteed because, like, I think I said it before, he might, if he doesn't play well, like, Sean Marks could cut it. Like, he could just, you know, like, I know he has, like, isn't it like a certain date before it becomes guaranteed? I know it's like his contract is weird or something like that, but I feel like if he doesn't play well, like, Sean Marks could get, like, he better be on P's and Q's, you know what I'm saying?
So it keeps him flexible. I think I remember the date offhand, but I think he has 2 guaranteed dates. One might be December, one might be January. But it keeps him flexible. I mean, we've heard a guy like JJ Redick's out there. He's looking to sign after training camp. He's going to let himself get healthy. So he's been moved to the Nets. Who knows? If Bembry doesn't really impress them over the first few months, he can kind of slot in. Redick can slot in and replace Bembry as that shooting guard, I guess, off the bench. So Nets have options. And if not him, then they have another roster spot open for buyout season, which there'll be more vets that get cut. So I think Javon Carter and Bembry are the 2 guys next up now that are kind of on the chopping block. They got to prove themselves for the first half of the year. Otherwise, the Nets can look to improve that.
And then before we get into the fan questions,
hey, real quick, do you mind if I ask a question?
Go ahead.
With the exit of those potential guys, there was another, discussion about D'Antoni. I understand D'Antoni's got a lengthy career. A lot of people call him like an offensive genius, but I've never been a fan of his play style, only just because I never felt like it really worked towards playoff time. It just seemed that way. Like if you look at his record as far as running his style of offense in the NBA, it looks really great during the regular season, but come playoff times, it just doesn't seem to work. And somebody did post up something earlier, and I just kind of was like, what did you think D'Antoni was a good fit for us as a coach? Or because I felt like, I mean, granted, because of the injuries, we didn't really have choices with a lot of the lineups, and we constantly, what was it, like 40 something at the end. Yeah. But did you see D'Antoni as an actual like good fit or a good mentor for Nash? Or
Saint tried to say, he's trying to say, because Saint thought that D'Antoni was influencing Nash's decisions a little bit.
Oh, I do. I do.
I think D'Antoni was a great get to kind of let Nash kind of slide in there and get comfortable and kind of ease him into that role. I think that was always the plan, to have him as a mentor for 1 year. And Nash, you could say D'Antoni's influencing Nash. I think Nash and D'Antoni see basketball very similarly. I mean, they played together. They have the same vision. So I think a lot of those principles are going to continue over to this year. I personally think D'Antoni's a tremendous coach, and he kind of revolutionized basketball. You say he never got over the hump in the playoffs, but I'll say to you, I mean, with those Steve Nash Suns teams and with the Harden Rockets teams, where was the year that they should have won? I mean, the 1 year I could think off the top of my head with Harden, I mean, is he supposed to beat the Golden State Warriors? They were a better team. They were
yeah, that's true. Very true.
And he maximized, he maximized both those rosters. They were 60-win teams. The Rockets actually beat out the Warriors for the 1 seed one of those years. And he's doing with Harden and less pieces. I mean, they had Chris Paul, but Chris Paul's Rockets tenure was the worst years of his career. He was injured all the time. And if he's healthy for that Game 7, maybe they win that series and get over the hump and beating the greatest team of all time. So I can't blame D'Antoni for that. He put a perennial winner out there. I mean, they were unbelievable with both teams. I don't think a Steve Nash team should be beating a San Antonio team or a Lakers team with Kobe. Like, I don't think they were as good as those teams.
Shaq, yeah. I guess you're either a fan of, like, because I've been watching the NBA for 30 years, like, and I guess you're either a fan of his style or you're not. Like, I don't take away from him as a coach and his, like, because he is an offensive, like, genius. I guess I'm just not a fan of his play style and like what he puts.
There's more than one way.
You make good points. You do.
Yeah, I think there's more than one way to do it. There's different play styles that work. It might not be your ideal play style, but I think you can't deny that D'Antoni's been successful. And then I think putting the blame the same way I think putting the blame on Harden for losing the playoffs those years and not having a ring is unfair. I think it's unfair to put it on D'Antoni just because I really don't think it's fair to blame people for playoff struggles unless they choked, unless they were the favorite and you expected them to win and they lost. Like LeBron, people say he's lost all these times in the finals. The only time that really is a stain on his legacy for me is the Dallas series. They should have won that one. He should have played better. So other than that, I think maximizing your team's chances to get as far as you can and then losing to a team that's clearly better, I can't see that as a playoff choke.
Yo, Billy's coming with the facts. D'Antoni, the only thing with D'Antoni, like I said, I've already said he's a legendary offensive coach. I think he's an offensive genius. But it's just the only slack you got to come at him is the defense thing. The defense thing is the only, like, if you want to criticize him, you could criticize him on that. I feel like that's the only open criticism you can give on. But offensively, I don't have no complaints about D'Antoni. Like I said, we were the number one offense. Our offensive rating was through the roof, 3-point percentage. Like the way the Nets ran this, like the way the Nets offense looked when every star was out. I watched every Nets game. When every star was out, it's like the offense didn't change a beat. It was still on point. Every game was just like fluid. You know what I'm saying? KD would not play, and it'll be Kyrie and Harden. It still looked good. When it was just Harden against the Suns by himself, it still looked good. KD by himself against the Knicks, and what else? Another team. It still looked good. Kyrie by himself against the Jazz. It still looked like, you know what I'm saying? The offense was just fluid the whole season. So I'm not even complaining with D'Antoni. But I still think like we'll still be the number one offense. But it's just that I'm a little worried about Nash. I'm a little bit, as every Nets fan is, we're a little worried about Nash by himself. You know,
I wouldn't be when you got the big three. Yeah. I mean, let's also be honest. Like how much. You know, like because we always go back at like who's really calling the shots, the players or the coach. Yeah. I do like the other guys he's brought in. It does help to me a little more balance, but I mean, at the end of the day, you have the big three, and then you bring in a bunch of other dudes that obviously plug a lot of the holes we had last year. I just, you know, whether you have D'Antoni or not, I don't think matters at the end of the day, but. Yeah, like you said, we're moving on to our say anything, ask questions.
Yeah. You got some people, right? I know you have something.
I had a couple people had I had asked for people to just bring up some questions to ask Billy. If you've got any questions in chat for Billy, for us, whatever general questions, just do type @Saint.
Yeah,
and we will bring up the questions and we will try to answer as many as we can.
Yeah, shout out everybody. Shout out! Oh, it's 250. Shout out everybody in the chat right now. Again, this has been amazing. Thanks, Billy's. Like I said, there's a reason why Billy is verified. He knows his basketball. He knows what he's talking about. He's a good reporter, and we just really want to thank Billy for again blessing the Nets kingdom. I know that I've had the internet issues, but even though this has still been a good stream, you know what I'm saying? Please hit that like button, y'all, and we'll start answering questions. Just put @Saint in the chat right now, and we'll ask any questions y'all want to ask Billy right now. Just put @Saint in the chat. We'll try to get to everybody. The comments is going a little bit fast. I'm trying to read.
Yeah, I'll read off the couple that somebody. So this is a good one to start because I know we didn't breach this subject, and again, it's another one of those things where people think we're going to use it, not use it. We have a couple people on our Discord that come in here often. DJ Chasm, Crooklyn. They asked, who's the best player we can get with the 11 million trade exemption? Because that's been a good topic. Like some people think we're going to get it and we're not going to use it. And like I'm under the impression that I think we are at some point going to use it to plug holes once we get the season going and we see what we need, whether it's a big or this or that. Like I think. Because that's where I always give Mark's credit is and what's amazing about him, even with the big three, and I'll always keep saying is how do you have the big three and be able to go into a draft 5 guys, so you have pieces to trade if you want to, and then you also have he makes another trade, even if we weren't all happy with what we got back for the Dinwiddie, we wind up getting the trade exemption, we wind up getting a couple second round picks, but you got to at least give like Mark's like the kudos for always keeping the Nets in a position to have something to either acquire something else to make the team better. Yeah. So that's been a debate.
But that TPE, you can't attach a player with it, right? You only can.
No, I don't believe so. No.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. What would you? For me, I don't think we don't really need any. Well, like I said, right now I don't know if we need to use it. I don't even. I think
Not now. I look at it as like in the season type thing. I don't look like you need to go out and try to use that right now to make something happen because I think most teams are set.
Yeah.
Most people are not willing to get rid of something. I could see us using it if the roles were reversed and they were trying to get rid of DJ and we had no big men. We'd be like, oh, here, we'll use that. But
Billy, what's at the team?
Yeah, I mean, barring injury, given that they're going to get Milsap and like the Aldridge now, like you guys said, I don't really see a hole in this team. I don't think they're going to use it. That would be my gut as of now. I think any hole they have, they could probably fill with a buyout guy.
Yeah.
For a minimum contract at the deadline. So, and when you look at the guys that are out there, I mean, I did this a while back, and I was looking particularly at bigs because they were thin up front in the beginning. But Larry Nance just got traded to Portland. Could he move again? Maybe if they kind of blow things up at the deadline.
Yeah.
Dwight Powell, Derek Favors, Serge Ibaka, Tristan Thompson, Kyle Anderson, Maxi Kleber. So they have those guys. I don't think any of them really fit anymore, given the additions up front. So. I don't really think they're going to use it personally.
Yeah.
But
I don't think they're going to use it. Go to the next question, Sam.
All right, so we've got a whole bunch. Let me try to find them here.
I might ask if Kyrie's going to be 100% focused this year. I think he is. I hope he is. We never know. Well, Kyrie, like I said, he has his stuff off the court, so we never really know for sure. But every time I see him on the court, he's focused. So that's all I really care about. If he's on the court and he's focused, that's all I care about. So.
I've never seen him really not play well when he's playing. So, I mean, as long as he's playing, he seems focused, like you said. So, it's not really a worry to me. And I think that's a big reason why you make the trade for James Harden last year, because Kyrie can kind of do his thing when he needs to, and Harden kind of keep the ship afloat.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question. Tricky Nicky asked, and we could just say the number. Nets beat the Bucks in how many?
This year?
Yeah. How many?
Everyone's fully healthy. I think I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5.
Yeah, 5.
I was gonna say 5.
Kenny 03 predictions for our record this year, and you think we will be number 1 seed in the East?
Ooh, that's tough.
I'm gonna say that they're number 1 seed.
Hmm.
The amount of wins about 65. I don't know exactly how many, but I'm gonna say.
Well, I realistically think we could. I mean, if you think about it, our record was like 48-24 last year or something, and that was with all the injuries and all the things that we had to do. So we're fully healthy. I see us a 10 to 15 loss rate.
You guys,
am I off by that?
You're not taking in the load management. There's going to be load management. Don't act like we're not.
Yeah, yes, there's load management.
They are now, but how deep they are now. I mean,
I
don't. And the Nets don't have a lot of back-to-backs. I think they have 11 or 12, which is one of the lower numbers in the league.
Yeah.
And a handful of them are home back-to-back. So I don't know if they're going to be sitting guys in front of the home fans as much. So we'll see. I think they're deep enough. They sit guys. You could throw a Cam Thomas in there. He'll give you a 20 ball, and then they'll be fine. So I think they're unbelievable. So I think 65 is reach.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Age says, does Billy think we have an NBA MVP candidate? Or because that's the other argument. People are always saying, well, we got too many, they're not going to give it to us. Do you think we have do you think anybody on our team can actually win the MVP this year, just being as stacked as we are?
KD and Harden. I think KD can win MVP if the Nets went on like a 70-win legendary season, and he's the best player on that team, and he's healthy and having a good year. I think Harden or KD can win if the other one is hurt for a chunk of the year and the other one's carrying the team and they're a top seed. So if both are healthy and they're just at a 60-65 win team, I don't think the voters are going to reward the most stacked team in the league. I mean, we saw in Golden State, Steph and KD, neither one of them won an MVP during those years. So I think it's going to have to take something extraordinary for either one to get it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone. Well, like I said, we do have MVP players, but I feel like last year was KD's best chance to get it because a lot of the MVP votes, people don't understand, a lot of MVPs be storyline. You have to have a good storyline for your MVP, and KD's storyline last year was perfect. It was perfect, and he was on that run. I think he was averaging like 32. His stats was crazy like that first few months, and then I think he had that hamstring, and then he was out. And then I remember it was like Joel Embiid and KD who's going to be MVP, and then KD got. But I think KD's best chance was last year because he was coming right off the Achilles. It was like a great storyline. And that I feel like that was the season. But now that the team is like this, I don't think they're going to vote for either Harden. I don't think they're going to vote for anybody on this team, honestly. I don't think, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You guys, Raging, what do you guys think about MVP candidates?
I think, like, unless like Billy said, maybe one's hurt, maybe the other one could get it, and they're carrying the team, we get a lot of wins, obviously. But I think if they're both playing, I don't think either one of them gets it again. Like Billy said, you're not gonna reward the most stacked team. You didn't see it in Golden State. You haven't seen it with a lot of the other teams that had the stacked teams. If it could go, it could go either way. I mean, you can, again, like we saw what Harden did when KD was out. I mean, he was in the MVP talks, but then remember, he got hit with the injury bug.
Yeah.
But maybe say Harden stays healthy, maybe he could have won that MVP. You never know.
Yeah. Next, I have a question here. It says, "What is our biggest weakness with Paul and LaMarcus Aldridge?" That's a good question. Shout out Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. said that in the show.
We got all kinds of NBA players in here.
The NBA players in the chat. What is our biggest weakness with Paul, Millsap, and Aldridge? That's a good question, man. I would say you know what it is? Sometimes when we go small and we switch everything, I'm not sure I guess LaMarcus is not really a switch big, and Paul Millsap is not really that much of a switch big. So the switching does worry me with Paul and LaMarcus. The key is for Steve Nash to make those adjustments during the game. He's got to sub in Claxton, or he's got to go either small with somebody else. Maybe go small with Bruce Brown again and switch. If we play a small ball team, that's where I think Paul Millsap and LaMarcus kind of will struggle. If like teams are going to ISO and try to hunt them in the switches when we do pick and rolls and trying to hunt, LaMarcus and trying to get him to guard in the perimeter. That's the only weakness I see with Paul Millsap and LaMarcus. But yeah, Billy, what do you think is our weakness with them?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that's going to ultimately hurt them in terms of their chances of winning the title. But if they have to have a weakness on one of the most perfect rosters we've ever seen, I'd say perimeter defense, just because none of their best perimeter defenders are their best players. In terms of their best perimeter defenders are probably Claxton, Bruce Brown, Bembry, and James Johnson.
Yeah.
So it's like three of those guys are probably not seeing regular rotation minutes, and none of them are probably starting and seeing the top 5-6 minutes. So when you think about the best lineups, we talked about our closing lineups. No one really mentioned those guys. So when you think about the guys that are going to be on the floor, it's going to be up to Kyrie, Harden, KD. And if you're playing them at the 1, 2, 3, they're going to have to guard the perimeter. So that means Kyrie has to guard the best guard. Harden, you want to place on someone a little bit stronger and smaller, maybe guard a 3. KD has to maybe guard a 2. It's like, so that's the only problem with playing bigger. Harden's better at guarding 3s and 4s than he's at guarding 1s and 2s. So kind of you have to mix that up a little bit. And then, as you mentioned, if you're playing bigger, you don't have as many versatile smalls on the floor that can guard the perimeter. So I'd say perimeter defense probably.
I agree.
Hey, I got from our moderator, Isaac, and this is a good question because I am still shocked why this guy has not won Executive of the Year. He's like, but his question was, who is the best GM in the entire league? I'm always going to say Marks, just from when this man got here. Like, Billy, we never mentioned the predecessor to Sean Marks. He is the man that
shall not be named.
He shall not be named for the worst trade in Nets history with the Celtics.
Name starts with a B or something like that.
Yeah, we don't so unfortunately, BK, it matches. Yeah, but I'm shocked that Sean Marks has not I've heard his name floated, but the fact that he hasn't won it, or probably won't even win it this year, they'll probably give it to Rob Pelinka and the Lakers.
Wait, who was the shit here last year? Who was the GM?
Oh God, that's a good question.
The Suns, I believe.
Oh,
James,
wow.
James.
Yeah,
the Suns.
James. He was on the Miami Heat. He played for the Heat.
James Jones.
He got
this. So, Billy, who do you think the best GM is? And also, why do you think Sean Marks is not getting any love from the league? I mean, what this man has done to this team, if you were here before the Big Three, you saw what he had to work with and what he turned it into. He turned it into an attraction for stars, veterans, the rest of the league. The word got out. They saw what we were doing, the Nets were doing here, and it's undeniable. The setup for the Nets in Brooklyn is amazing, and you literally arguably have one of the best GMs, if not the best GM in my opinion. So what are your thoughts on that?
quickly because they're getting on me in the comments because I didn't mention KD is one of the best defenders. He's obviously my general point stands that
He is. Well, look
Yeah.
Our
Yeah,
chat could get a little wild.
Yeah.
no, KD's obviously one of the Nets' better defenders. I'll say that now. But like I said, Bembry, Brown, Johnson, Claxton, they're all fringe rotation types for the Nets. So overall, their best players aren't really their best defenders. So, and back to your point, what was it again? Sorry.
It was just about here. I'll put the question back up. Isaac, one of our moderators on here, he said, "Who is the best GM in the league?" And I kind of you heard my little rant on why Sean Marks should be and hasn't been. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think before the Nets got KD and Kyrie, the Nets weren't good enough for him to get notoriety in terms of that. The guys that are typically rewarded are the ones that put their teams in the second round or conference finals at least. So the Nets weren't really at that level yet. If you look at the overall scope of what Marcus and Sonson's coming to the Nets, he's probably done a better job than any GM over the last 5-6 years. In terms of individual years, when you look at the first year that KD and Kyrie signed here, KD was hurt. Kyrie was in and out. He played 20 games. The Nets weren't really that great, so he wasn't really going to get rewarded for that summer. And then if you're going to reward a team that got 2 stars, the Clippers got 2 stars. So I think that's where he lost out there. Then the next year, which was last year, KD came back. The Nets were really good, but they got Harden. And then I feel like the voters, there's a kind of a big market bias in NBA media where people hate seeing big markets succeed. And Marks is not going to get the reward for getting a guy like Blake on a buyout or LaMarcus on a buyout. Or a guy like Millsap on the minimum. They're seen as ring chasers going to a big market. So a lot of people don't think there's a skill in that. I think a guy like KD plays a big part in terms of recruiting. So I don't know how much credit to give Marks in terms of those type of moves, rather than making the overall landscape of the Nets attractive. But obviously, getting KD and Kyrie here in the first place and then trading for James Harden were 2 great moves. And he's done well around the edges in terms of finding some young talent like Claxton. Cam Thomas looks good. So we'll see what happens. I think Marks definitely deserves an award at some point. Maybe it's this year. I think if the Nets have a great season and they're in that conversation, as long as there's not some lovable small market team that makes a big jump like a Phoenix, I think Marks should be a prime candidate to win that. I think he does have the edge over Pelinka. I don't think a lot of NBA media and I don't think Westbrook's street cred around the league is as high as maybe it deserves to be. I don't know how much credit Pelinka is going to get for that and some of the old players as he's gotten over there. I think people like more what the Nets have done this offseason. But, hey, cherry on top would be if you could sign Harden and Kyrie to extensions. But, yeah, I definitely agree with you. Marks deserves one. I'm not sure.
Stay on that for a minute. Do you think that's going to get done before the season starts, the extensions? Because that was another one of our questions about the extensions for Kyrie and Harden. Like, I definitely don't think Kyrie's going anywhere. Harden, I always kind of felt like could be the guy that leave, but I don't think he's going anywhere either. But do you think those extensions get done before the season starts, or is that something that lingers into the regular season?
Yeah, I have no intel on that, but from everything we've heard, it seems like that's the plan. Marks has even said it himself. He seemed very confident in saying that those guys are going to be signed, sealed, and delivered by the time training camp rolls around. So that's my expectation for Kyrie. It's interesting because he can make more money if he waits till the offseason. If he signs now, he gets a little bit less. So, but I think Kyrie's just comfortable being here, and if all the big 3 sign, I think he'd do so as well. Harden, I'm not sure if he's going to sign the full. I think his extension could go up to 3 years. I'm not sure if he's going to sign that full amount. That's, again, no intel. It's just my suspicion. Kyrie, like you said, I think he wants to be here as long as possible. And Kyrie and KD, they came here together. I think they're going to be here together. And KD was really the big one. I mean, signing KD to this amount, he was the one that you feared most just because he had jumped from team to team to a point that maybe he leaves if things weren't going well. But it really seems like he wants to make Brooklyn his home and potentially retire here. So, I mean, that's a huge sign. He's really the leader of this pack. He's the one who's friends with Kyrie. He's the one who's friends with Harden and really made both those happen. He's been the lead recruiter for Blake Griffin, for LaMarcus, for all these guys. So he's really the leader of this team on and off the court in terms of how they're built. So it was huge to get KD, and I'd expect the other stars shortly to follow.
All right. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. And again, this has been a really good stream. Thank you, Billy, for coming on and blessing the kingdom, Nets Nation. Shout out Nets Nation. Shout out everybody in the chat. Please hit that like button. And again, it's an exciting season, an exciting time. It's a great – what a time to be a Nets fan. And you know what I'm saying? What a time to be a Nets fan is really what I got to say. And we'll get our last words in. You want to say last words? Chubbs, Rage, last words before we go? All right, make sure you guys hit that like button. Yes, shout out Age. What's up, bro?
Yeah, just my last words are simple. Billy, thanks for coming on. Reached out to you. I appreciate you reaching back. It's you're more than welcome anytime you want to come on. Drop us a line. Let us know. We'll reach out to you again. Really appreciate you coming on. It's been a good show. It's good to we appreciate what you do on Twitter and what you for Nets Daily. Are you still with SB Nation as well?
Well, Nets Daily is a subsidiary.
Oh, same.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Follow Billy on Twitter, y'all. Follow Billy on Twitter. And you got any socials you want? Yeah, good. Any shout outs or anything?
No, I just really use Twitter. I kind of keep everything else private. But guys, follow me on Twitter at Billy Reinhart. Love to connect with any of you guys that I'm not already connected with.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow Billy on Twitter. Go ahead, Rage and Chubbs, your last words.
Great stream. It was great to talk about, the Milsap, LaMarcus Aldridge, DJ, excited for the season to roll on. Obviously it's a lot of ifs, but I'm excited to see what the season brings. Who knows, maybe we might see some history done. You never know. And that's in 5.
Oh, I guess on my last words with that, Ray just reminded me, it was another question real quick. I guess this will be my last words is, do you think outside of LaMarcus Aldridge and obviously with Millsap, does that mean we're done with our roster moves for the year? And do you see anything else coming, or that's pretty much going to be the cherry on top?
Oh, no. I think we still we're still going to make moves. You know how Sean Mark.
Even if we bring in LaMarcus, you really think we're going to still add, or it's going to be more right into the season at some point if we add again?
I feel like if there's a point in the season if we're struggling, I could see it. I could see maybe a cut, maybe or maybe we could switch one of the 2 ways out, something like that. I don't know. I think they would definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the other question, Billy. We wanted to ask that where do you think that last 2 ways going to? Do you think it's going to DDJ? What do you? I know we got the Isaiah Cordner dude. That was a stash from a few years ago. Where do you think that 2 ways going and possible free agents before we leave?
Yeah, I don't think Cordner is really enamored with the idea of a 2-way. I think if he can't get a full spot on the team, he'd rather go back to Europe. I think he can make more money that way.
Yeah.
I thought of David Duke Jr. probably had it locked up after the first few summer league games, and then they didn't play him in the final game. So that's probably a good indicator that he does. Mark Zegarowski, I think, has a slight chance of getting it. I think they're all going to come into camp. The Nets don't have to sign a 2-way until after training camp, and I think they'll compete for it. That's my assessment of it. Kessler Edwards is obviously the other 2-way. Yeah. The one advantage the Nets have to giving it to David Duke Jr., and that's why I think he's the leading candidate for it, is that they still retain Zegarowski's rights since he was a draftee of theirs. If they want to keep him, stash him in Long Island domestically for a year, he doesn't have to be a 2-way, and they still maintain his rights, whereas Duke Jr. was not a draft pick. So if they don't sign him to a 2-way, they haven't been at Exhibit 10, so they would hold his G League rights, but any team could sign him to an NBA deal and the Nets would lose him. So I think in terms of keeping all the assets, it makes sense to keep Duke Jr. and then keep Zegarowski in Long Island for a year, similar to what they did with Jalen Hands, and then they ultimately traded him. But that would be my guess.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. We can possibly lose DDJ to another NBA team if he doesn't make the roster. If they don't sign him. I mean,
he's getting picked up. Yeah,
they wouldn't get anything in return. It would just be like a team, because teams are scouting in the G League all the time. If let's say the Pistons see David Duke Jr. is available, they can't get him in the G League. But if they wanted to sign him to a 2-way or a full NBA contract, then the Nets would lose him. He would just go.
Oh, wow. Might could steal him away, man.
No, I mean,
that's
because I'm a fan of Zegarowski. I think his game looks real polished. There's no need for him right now. Size was a little concerned, but I think he's somebody you keep, like you're saying, stash him in the G League. Yeah. But DDJ, I feel like because outside of that, Raekwon Gray, we didn't see enough of him to even really make a determination on that. But I feel like you don't let DDJ walk. I feel like you give him that 2-way.
Yeah.
Whether he becomes used a lot or he's going back and forth between G League and the roster if somebody gets hurt or, and he gets slotted in like Cam Thomas and Sharp, like, play at the end. But I feel like you don't let him go because I feel like he has that potential to just be that all around, like, defensive good guy, can score. Like, he just has, for me.
You can't let him go because, like, I've seen Luka Garza get 2-ways. I've seen a lot of people that were not as good as DDJ getting 2-ways by other teams.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, as soon as if DDJ is like out there, he's gonna get a 2-way or somewhere else. Somebody's gonna take him.
In 2 seasons, because I still feel like every year we are going to basically remake our roster. I just have that feeling it's going to be like that until the big three are gone.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I think in 2 seasons could be exactly what you need in a 3-and-D type guy. He just has the intangibles, in my opinion, to really kind of be that nice role player that you're searching for, and you have him on your bench for super cheap. But
all right, yeah. All right, y'all.
Sorry, those just popped into my head, but yeah, there we go.
Appreciate the chat, man. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, want to thank Billy again. Again, follow Billy on Twitter and follow Saint at SaintNet1 and follow me at Nets Kingdom AJ. Appreciate you guys again. Stay tuned. We're gonna be having more content again. We're gonna have more streams, more content as the season open up and more news pops up. So everybody just stay tuned, lock in. It's We Go Hard Nation. Appreciate everybody. All right.
Peace.
We out.